Hello, Brother Sewing and Crafting family. I'm Angela Wolf, and today we have two very special people that have not been on here for a while, brother educators, Barbara Jones and Jerry Granata. Hey guys. So we have a really fun show today. Barbara and Jerry are going to talk about quilting, but two totally different ways, right? So right. Barbara, show us.
What's that?
What are you going to talk about today?
My design center. And how Jerry? I quilt.
And how you quilt, which I love, by the way. And Jerry, you're going to give a whole different angle to this.
I am. I'm going to talk about free motion quilting. I'm a domestic machine quilter. It's how I do all my quilts. And I'm going to talk about free motion, which I know for some people is kind of a four-letter word, but we're going to break it down and make it really easy. And before we get started, I do want to give a shout out to the mighty Wolf Pack, I'm sure is here. So
that actually, they're literally here. And they're saying hi.
I'm telling you.
So if no one has been to the show before, say hi, say where you're from. We always love to see. You never know, your neighbor might be sewing next to you, fishing, or today quilting. So, and they're all here and they're saying yes. Hello to you guys. So, which one of you would like to do your demo first?
I nominate Barb.
Thanks. No, I was going to follow up your.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start.
Okay. All right, so let me take this little banner off of here so it doesn't block your, there you go.
We're going to do the hard part first.
It's not the hard part.
It's not at all. All right, Jerry, so first off, I love your backdrop. Both of you have beautiful quilts behind you.
Thank you.
I have clothes behind me.
We all have what we love, what our passions are behind us.
That's correct.
That is so true. All right, so take it away, Jerry. Show us what you got.
Hello, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. I do want to thank Angela, and I do want to thank Brother. I'm so excited to be here. What I want to talk about is quilting, especially on like the XP machines. You know, our Brother machines are so big, and they make it so nice for free motion quilting. And I do want to talk about, we're going to talk about preparation. We're going to talk about thread. We're going to talk about needles, everything that you're going to need to have great success. As I travel around the country, I talk to people all the time that are like, I'm just not comfortable. I've tried it. I'm not sure. I'm going to break this down to make it really as simple as I can for you. I know one person's, hesitate to use the word easy. One person's easy is another person's complicated. But I'm going to break it down as much as I can to give you great success. I'm going to tell you some of the things I do. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks about things that may help you. And I do want to make a disclaimer that my way, I don't claim that my way is the only way. There's a lot of ways that you can free motion quilt. I'm going to show you things that work for me. And if you haven't been having good success, maybe some of the things that I'm doing will work for you. So make sure that you have a writing utensil and some paper, because I'm going to throw a lot of tips and tricks. I've been quilting since 1976. So I have a lot of information in my head. And I always say I like to teach and give out information, otherwise my head will explode. I have to get it out. So here we go. The first thing I want to talk about is preparation. Okay, that is really key. Our lives are so busy and they're so full. Maybe not so much now, but maybe you have a little more time. But normally when COVID is gone, we have very busy, active lives. And what we'll try to do, and this goes for any kind of sewing, it goes for garment sewing, any kind of sewing at all, we will rush around like chickens with our heads cut off, and then we'll try to sit down and sew something. Then we get frustrated, and we get mad, and things don't work the way they are. So one of the keys as far as free motion quilting is to make sure that you are calmer, okay? I know we're very busy, but try to make sure that you're as calm as you can be. Listen to some music, drink some tea, just try to do the things, take 5 minutes or so just to relax, maybe just do some deep breathing, and try to calm yourself down. Because trust me, we are free motioning with our hands, right? So anything that's up here is going to transfer to here. So whenever you are free motion quilting, if you are very anxious, it's going to show up in your quilting. So try to remain as calm as you can.
Jerry, that's the best advice ever. And I just have a question.
Yes.
I told you the doorbell would ring. Does Zumba count? Because we've had Zumba classes out front. Does that work?
Absolutely. You do
That's
want
no affiliation to brother, by the way. We're just talking about exercises.
yoga is good, anything like that. But again, take 5 minutes before, because sometimes your heart rate gets up, and you want to make sure you're kind of bringing your heart rate down before you get started. So
sounds good. All right, I just had to ask. Keep rolling.
Just make sure you are relaxed and you are as calm as you can be, because you want to have success. You don't want to be frustrated, right? We're trying to get rid of that. So that's the biggest tip that I have, is to be prepared. Have all of your items around you. I cook a lot, and I do a lot of French style cooking. So it's called mise en place, which means everything in its place. In America, we call it prepping. So, when we cook, we have all of the chopped vegetables and all the meats. We have everything that we need for our recipes in front of us, so that we know that we have everything and we're prepared. So do the same thing with your sewing and your free motion quilting. Have all of your thread available. Have an idea and a game plan of where you want to go. Some of the designs that you want to try, if you're just practicing for the day, have all of your quilt sandwiches ready. And we'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Have everything around you that you're going to need, so that you're not running around searching for things. Try to have them in front of you. Let's talk about thread for a little bit. What kind of thread can you use for free motion quilting? And I'm going to break this down into one word: anything. Truly, you can use any kind, and that's why I love Brother machines. You can throw any thread at it and it will work. I have quilted with metallics, monofilaments, cotton, poly, mixtures, variegated, solids, you name it. I have quilted with it all. And it all works beautifully. A lot of that has to do with your tension and the kind of needles that you're going to use. So I don't want to jump ahead of myself too much. I want to get into settings and needles in just a bit. But as far as thread, there are no limitations. The only thing I want to say about thread is make sure that, I know thread can be expensive, but in the long run, it's going to be worth it if you buy the thread that is going to work the best for you. Try to spend the most that you can afford. I know budgets are tight, but if you get the best that you can afford, you're going to have great success. Really try to avoid the bargain bins thread. Probably not going to work. As far as, I know some people will free motion quilt with serger thread. Try to avoid that. Serger thread is not meant to be used alone by itself. So try not to piece with serger thread. Try not to quilt with serger thread. It's just not strong enough, and it will not hold up over the years. I have quilted quilts with serger thread just to see how they do, and after a little bit, those threads start pulling apart. So get a really good quality cotton, poly, monofilament, metallic. Buy the best quality that you can afford. Also, some issues, there's lint issues. I mean, if you buy really inexpensive thread, what I suggest is when you're in a store, hold the spool up to a light. If it looks like Bigfoot lives there and it's just a big hairy mess, please don't buy that. Because where do you think that lint is going to go? It's going to end up in your machine.
We've all been there.
We're all doing high fives over here going, yes, yes. And everyone watching says, too, thank you for addressing the serger thread. And no.
Now, I know some people do, and I know some people have success. And it will work initially, but what's going to happen is as you watch and use these quilts, that thread is really going to come apart after a little while. Now, you don't want to put all this work into this beautiful creation and then find it's now falling apart after a few washings. So it's meant to be used with 3 or 4 threads together in a serger. So just make sure that you are not using serger thread, you're using a really great quality. Otherwise, your technician, your service tech is going to get mad at you, and you're going to have all of this lint in your bobbin case, which I know that we do not clean out our bobbin cases enough. You should clean them out after every bobbin change. And I know some people will go 10, 15, 4 years without cleaning out their bobbin case. But please try to buy the best quality thread you can afford to avoid any of that lint going into your machine. And do make sure that you're cleaning out your bobbin cases often if you are using any kind of just a little bit of a fuzzy thread. The good quality cottons, the difference is they're called gas threads. They're run through very quickly. They're run through a fire or a gas, and it tries to eliminate a lot of those little threads. So that's another reason why some of the threads can be a little higher priced, is because the quality is better and the processing is better to eliminate a lot of that lint. So today I'm just going to use a regular embroidery polyester thread. And can you use an embroidery thread? Yes, you can. You can use embroidery threads. It's just a quality polyester. I also try to stay away from rayons when I'm free motion quilting because it is a natural product, which is good. The problem is it's not 100% color fast. You can't guarantee it's going to be color fast. I did a white whole cloth quilt using red work with rayon thread, and once I washed it and dried it, I had a pink quilt. So it's not color fast, so be very careful. Yeah, that was a good day at my house. I can't hear you, Angela.
Can't hear.
Sorry, Jerry. Can you hear me? I have a question then, because when I hand dye my garments, I will use cotton thread because then it all dyes the same color. So if you use cotton thread, will the same thing happen, similar to the rayon when you're doing on the quilt, or no?
It can. Any of your natural threads, you cannot guarantee that they are 100% color fast. And this is something that I want to get into later, is do a test. I test everything. I say it in all my classes. My students get sick of me saying it. Test, test, test. Because better to find out that something is going to bleed on a little sample rather than you spend years on a quilt or however long, and then you wash it and it has bled all over. So you want to be very, very careful.
Yeah.
Do a small
Rayon
test.
also shrinks.
Yes.
Rayon
The
shrinks.
shrinkability. Now, some people, there is a little, there's a trick where if you are working on like a 30s reproduction quilt or a Civil War type quilt, 1800s quilt, another thing is do not pre-wash your fabrics. So we're getting off a little bit, but that's okay. Do not pre-wash your cotton fabrics, and then quilt your quilt as usual. Then wash it in hot water and dry it. And what will happen is that cotton will shrink, the fabric will shrink, and it will give you that kind of old-fashioned puckery look. So if you don't pre-wash your cotton fabrics and you want that old puckery kind of look to antique quilt look, don't pre-wash your fabrics and don't use cotton thread. And then it will all shrink and shrivel up and give you that kind of wrinkly look. That's really cool.
That's a great tip. Great tip.
Now, that is not a thing that I want to use for my show quilts. If I'm not sure how a fabric is going to act, I will pre-wash. So just to make sure everything plays together nicely. And if you're going to pre-wash your fabric, I know we're getting into this dark area where do you pre-wash or don't you? Some people do, some don't. If you are working on a wall hanging and your free motioning wall hanging, is never going to see water or washing machine or a dryer, don't worry about it. If you are ever going to wash that quilt, I highly suggest that you do pre-wash. And some people are allergic to the sizing, so you do want to pre-wash. They have a sensitivity to the chemicals, so you do want to pre-wash. So if you're looking for rules and right or wrong, I am not that person. I am a rule breaker. My quilts have upholstery fabric, aluminum foil, vinyl. They have everything in them. So I am a rule breaker.
And that's okay, because they sure are gorgeous, so we don't care.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to be showing you some samples in a little bit too that have like dancewear spandex and satin and all sorts of different things. Try to get people out of. I'm a get out of your box kind of person. Challenge yourself. I'm always looking for new ways to challenge myself. So I encourage people to do that. Go down the aisles you don't normally go down. So
awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, back to thread. You can throw anything that you want in there. Needles. Needles are very important, and it's not so much the type as it is you want to match the needle size to the thread. Now, you want to think about this. If you're using a big, giant, like jeans needle, and you're trying to quilt with a silk thread, 100-weight silk thread, I cannot guarantee the results. It's going to go haywire. And then conversely, if you're using a size like 60 needle, and you're trying to put a 12-weight thread through that needle, it's going to be a disaster. You're going to have shredded thread. You're going to have all sorts of things. So with a 40-weight thread, you can get away with a 70, but I highly suggest like an 80 or 90. You can use 100 if you want. Try to stay in the 80, 12, 90, 14 range of needle for your 40 weights. And again, you're going to be tired of me saying this, but test everything. A little trick that I have is I have a stack of just really inexpensive muslin with some maybe cotton batting or poly batting right next to my machine. And I do a warm-up. I do about a 10-minute warm-up before I start on my quilt, just to, again, kind of get the stress of the day out of my head and out of my hands. And it gets my brain into free motion world. It kind of gets my brain switched over into what I'm going to do. So I have a whole stack of quilt sandwiches, just real inexpensive sandwiches that I use to warm up with. Now, when I talk about test, do not test on your actual quilt. Please don't do that. What's going to happen is you're going to have to use what I lovingly call the enemy, which is our seam ripper. And trust me, nobody on this planet dislikes ripping out stitches more than me. I can guarantee that. So I'm going to prepare as much as I can so I don't have to do that. So just be prepared. Know what designs you're going to use. Please test all of your stuff first, because otherwise you're going to spend hours ripping out. And trust me, as dense as I quilt, even just a small, like little 4 to 5 inch area that I quilted may seem small, but if I make a mistake and have to rip that area out, it could take half a day for me to rip that out. So just test it first, play around first, get all that stress out, and you should be able to be ready to go. So another thing when I talk about testing before you quilt is make sure that when you are practicing the designs you want to use on your finished product, that you match the top fibers, the batting, and the backing with your tests. So in other words, if you have upholstery fabric in your top and you have 2 layers of batting in the middle and you have a cotton underneath, practice using that exact representation of your fabric. That way you are getting great results. You can adjust your tension. Everything can be set beforehand. So again, you're eliminating the possibility that you're going to have to rip anything out. So if you have like 4 or 5 layers that you're quilting through and you practice with, a muslin, like one of your practice sandwiches, your tension is probably going to be off and you're going to get frustrated. So if however many layers and whatever the fibers are in your final product, try to warm up and practice with that first. That way you can get everything set. You can get your needles, your thread, your tension, everything is set, and you're going to prepare yourself to have greater success. So another thing I'm going to talk about is in preparation. Another thing to help you is, if at all possible, we all know that the best way to have your machine set is down in a table. But not everybody has that option. So what are some of the other options? And the reason why I say that is because, sometimes we work on big quilts. I'll work on large show quilts that are 100 inches by 100 inches, and I need the room. So what if I don't have a sewing table? What can I do? You can place your machine on a table that's large enough for the machine and then use an extension table. There are many companies that have them out. I prefer the Brother ones only because I not only am I a Brother educator, I just like them. I think they're wonderful. The extension tables are huge. And you could just set that right into your machine and it'll give you all of that room.
Can't hear you, Angela.
Sorry. We get this all the time too, where they can't afford the tables or they can't find them or they're in a small space, so they don't have a separate sewing area. That's such a great tip. And those extension tables are great. Yeah,
they're really, really great. I have a friend, her name is Paula Nadelstern. She's a world-class quilter. And during the year of 2000, a bunch of quilt experts got together and they came up with, they wanted to find the 100 best quilts of the 20th century. Things that were progressive, things that were incredible, things that were beautiful, things that were out of the box. Now, she did kaleidoscope quilts. And now she's not talking about the kaleidoscope pattern, but each one of her little pie pieces would have 100 to 200 tiny little pieces in them. And her quilts are incredible. And the reason why I bring this up is because a lot of people say, I don't have room. I just don't have room to quilt. Well, she was quilting on a $25 Singer featherweight that she got at a garage sale. And she was doing this on her dining room table that she shared with her husband, her kids, and her mother. So I don't want to hear that you don't have room to sew. It's true. You can make it work. If you have to, go get an inexpensive little banquet table at one of the big box stores and use that. I used that for many years and it worked great. And it did hold my extension table. So once I start showing you some of the demo, I'll show you my extension table and how nice that really is. That's what I use. I don't have, the machines get bigger and bigger, and sometimes, I've got a sewing table, but my machine doesn't fit inside it. So I use the extension table, and it works beautifully. Works great. So that's an option too. There are other options. You could do a DIY sort of table. Anything you can do to extend the range of your machine for free motion quilting works really, really well. There's some really creative options out there, but I like my extension table. Talk to your dealer. Maybe you can get a deal. Maybe they're having a sale. But just keep in contact with your dealer and see what they can do about the extension table for you, because they really do make a big difference. So, okay. So let's talk about practicing just a little bit. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about the settings in the actual machine. So let's head over to my machine. And what I'm going to do is show you the settings that I use.
Can't hear you, Angela.
I keep hitting the off so you guys can't hear my Ring doorbell. It's windy out. Those were such great tips from Jerry, and not only for quilting, but also for garments, I would say.
Yeah, I started out as a garment sewer. I never had store-bought clothes until I was out of high school. So I sewed everything, and I didn't start quilting until I got my first embroidery machine from Brother in '92.
Wow. That's awesome.
There it is. Yeah.
All right, Jerry, I think we can see your screen now, so I'm going to bring you back up here.
Can you still hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you just perfectly.
Awesome. Also, for the record, I also started out with garments and costuming. So a lot of people will wonder, well, why am I using all these unusual fabrics in my quilts? Well, it's a come over from my garment days of satins and laces and silks and, all sorts of unusual fabrics that we normally
Whatever we had in our scrap bag.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
Still do that.
Another thing about me is I was a member of the National Marionette Company when I was in high school, and my job was to costume all the marionettes. So I had just a slew of unusual fabrics. I know, I have the weirdest life. It's just...
That's okay.
A lot of that, I was using a lot of these fabrics, and that's what actually started me on quilting. Because remember, I started quilting in 1976. So that's when I was also working with these marionettes. So all of that started right away, just started working its way into my quilts. So, and I love it. I just love using all these weird fabrics and things like that. So, all right. So let's get started with my settings. So here we are at the main screen of my machine. I'm going to touch sewing. And there we are. Now I am going to keep this on my, I'm sorry for the reflections here of my camera and things, but we'll work with that as best we can.
We can see it just great. No worries about that.
All right. So I'm going to keep this at the default. If you notice, right over here, my machine defaults at 1-03. That is center position. It's a straight stitch in the middle. I'm going to keep it there. And because I want my needle to be in the middle of my foot. And I'm going to talk about feet, too, in just a minute as well. So here we are. Now what I need to do is set my machine for free motion quilting. How do I do that? I'm going to go into the upper right-hand corner right here. There's a little edit key. I'm going to touch that, and I'll get a drop-down menu. And the first one that you'll see is it's a free motion, looks like little swirly threads, dotted threads, that also has a picture of, I call it a telephone, but a little telephone, but it really is the foot, and I'll show you what the foot looks like in just a minute. So you're going to touch that, and you're going to hear your machine get set up automatically for free motion quilting. It's going to set your tension, it's going to drop your feed dogs. And another thing to notice is on these machines, once you touch a button, it will go from white to blue. Blue means it is activated. So you're going to want to just kind of keep that in mind. So your free motion is activated. And really, that's it. You are all set. I do like to keep my pivot foot here. I like to keep that engaged so that when I stop quilting, my needle goes down into my project so it doesn't move, and my presser foot comes up. So that way I can rotate in any direction that I want. It just makes it so nice. So really, folks, that's it. That's all it takes in settings. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and come over to my other camera, and I'm going to show you at my needle position exactly what I am doing here. So
Ring doorbell. That was very easy to follow, and we could see it great. So, yeah, you guys think I'm kidding. So it is for real. It's been windy here for 2 days. I don't know if your dog will be barking like crazy if you could hear this. Yesterday we thought maybe we had an invisible visitor.
Your squirrel.
The squirrel. It is the squirrel. All right, Jerry. I think I see you out here. Yeah. Oh, look at that. I can see you great.
Yeah. So now we're over at the needle. So now we're getting ready to start. And I've got some things laid out here that I want to talk about. So if you remember from my setting screen, I said what looked like a telephone. If you check out my foot here, this is what Brother calls their O foot, the open toe foot. Notice that the foot matches the icon that you see for free motion quilting. I love this foot. I absolutely adore it because it puts enough foot on the fabric to keep the tension consistent, but it's not so bulky that I can't see where I'm going or where I've been. I love the visual of this foot. Love it, love it, love it. So as you can see, my needle is already threaded. And let's talk about needles for a little bit. What type do I use? So I use, for most of my quilting, I hope you can see this. This is just a top stitch needle. It's an 80-12 top stitch needle. And that's it, really. That comprises about 80, 85, almost 90% of my quilting. And what you can use a top stitch needle for, it has an elongated eye, much like a metallic needle. But I use this with metallic thread as well, because that way I don't have to keep switching needles. If you are finding that you are using metallic thread and it's not working in this, then you should probably switch to a metallic needle. But most of the time, I use this top stitch for just about everything. 80-12 works great for most of the threads that I use. If you find that possibly your thread is shedding a little bit, you may want to bump up to a 90-14, and that should take care of all those problems. So really, those two sizes are going to get you through just about everything you're probably going to want to quilt. If you're using them on a filament, you're going to want to go down in size. If you're using a heavier thread, you want to go up in size. Now, I've seen top stitch needles go up to 120. I've seen them go down all the way to 60. So you can go very tiny or you can go very large. Again, like we talked about, depending on the size of your thread, you want to try and match your needle and thread size. That will give you really good success. Now, for piecing, I'm not really going to talk about piecing too much, but I do want to give you a little tip. If you are having trouble with your accuracy of piecing, use a Microtex or a Sharps needle. I use, again, just like an 80-12 or a 90-14 with my piecing, and this will revolutionize your piecing, because what it does is it pierces your fabric in a very accurate way. So those of you who maybe your blocks are not the sizes that you want, things are a little wonky, switch to a Microtex or a Sharps needle, and I guarantee it will revolutionize your piecing. It really will work so much better for you. So let's talk about my setup here just a little bit. Now, what is this shiny thing on my table here? This is a free motion quilting. Oh gosh, what can you call it? It's like a pad, and I'm going to pull this back here. So what this top is, the reason why it's shiny, this is a silicone top. So this is very, very slippery. And the backing on it here it's a rubbery substance. It is not an adhesive, so you don't have to worry about anything gumming up your machine. It's a rubbery texture. And once you roll this and put this down, it will stick right to your machine and give you this very slippery surface. This revolutionized my stippling. I was having a hard time with stippling. Instead of smooth curves, it looked like they were squared off on the edges. Once I switched over to this, because it was so slippery, it gave me the ability to really glide around in all of my curves, and all of my curve stippling then became very, very smooth. You'll notice that there's a little hole in there. I'm not going to mention manufacturers because there are many manufacturers that have these. So just check with your dealer, and they'll be able to set you up. There's a hole in the middle where your needle will go down. If you want, you can place a little bit of tape on the ends to make it a little more secure, but really this just sticks right down to your machine. A little tip here, if it does not stick anymore, you want to take the back and run the back underwater. Just rinse it underwater and let it air dry. It will get rid of all of the fibers that are on the back, and it'll re-stick. And you can do that. I've had this one for probably 6-7 years. And I just use it over and over again. And as you can see, when I get a little bit of a tear, I just use some tape and tape it right up, and it just keeps right on going. So it's very, very good, very sturdy, very stable. Now, let's talk about, we talked about extension tables before. If it's okay, I'm going to pull back a little bit. I'll try to
Jerry,
do this.
while you're doing that, I just a couple quick questions while you're on there. People, they wanted to know if they could just get a little bit closer look at that foot, and I could see it okay, but I think somebody maybe couldn't see it exactly. So they were just asking if they could see the foot just a little closer. B wanted to know that.
You don't have to hand out Dramamine to anybody. I know this can make
Got it covered. Yeah,
there.
that was
And
great.
you can see right here, there's a little O, so even Brother stamps it on there so you can see what it is. This is the O foot for open toe, and you can see, let me put some fabric down there so you can see a little easier.
Yeah,
there you go.
that looks great.
There is your open toe. Like I said, it puts enough foot on the fabric to keep your tension consistent, but look at all the visual. My goodness, I just love it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And then the only other question, and guys, you can ask your questions, and yes, we are going to answer them, but I don't like to interrupt, so we wait till the end. So, hey, Marcia just wants to know, is that a glider sheet? Is that what you called it?
Yeah, I don't really want to mention manufacturers, but you could just check with your dealer or check with your local sewing shop or big box store for a free motion sheet. And they'll probably know what you're talking about. But it has silicone on the top or a Teflon top and a rubberized bottom. So
awesome.
There, you can do better. So just look for that and you'll be all set. You know, I know some people also use oven liners, Teflon oven liners, and they'll cut a hole in right in this area here, and they'll just tape it down to their machine. That works too. But again, like I said, my way is not the way, it's a way. So I'm just showing you what works for me and what has worked for me over the years. So let me go ahead and pull back just a little bit here. And I'm going to show you my table. See, I've got a little bit of tape on my sheet there. So here's my table. And you can see how large this table, it almost covers my entire sewing table.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
So I'll pull back even more. So you can see how large this table is. So it really works incredibly well for free motion quilting. If you're doing garments, it's not just for quilting. You can use this for anything. It works really, really well. So let me pull up. Apologize if I'm trying to keep this as still as I can.
No, you're doing great.
I'm in California, so if we see a picture shaking, we're heading under a table because it's probably an earthquake. So, so we just have to be careful about shaking cameras. So another tip that I want to give you is, especially on Brother machines, and I'm going to pull my sheet back a little bit to expose my bobbin case. And all I have to do is bring this under. That's all I have to do. And now, what I'm going to do is show you a little tip for when you are inserting your bobbin. So with our Brother machines, normally what we do is we drop it in the bobbin and we bring it around as we do, and then we cut it. At this point, when you are free motion quilting, do not cut it here. You want to leave it, you want to wrap it around and bring it out about to here, just about maybe halfway, but don't cut it. And then you want to replace it with the bobbin cover. Okay, so there's a little tip, and I'm going to show you exactly why I do it that way. Because you're going to need a little tail. So there we go. And I always leave a long tail of top thread as well. So now what I want to do, and I'm going to show, this is such a cool trick. So I'm going to drop my needle, and I'm going to raise it back up, and I'm going to pull up, just give a little tug, and there's my bobbin thread coming up. And this is why. Notice how nice of a tail you get. So if you were to cut that thread, you would have a tiny, tiny little tail that you wouldn't be able to grab onto. So now because I've left a long thread tail for the bobbin, a long bobbin tail, I now have all of this that I can grab onto. Why is that important? Because what we're going to do is we're actually going to start quilting now. Now there is really no right or wrong way to do this. I am a non-marking free motion quilter for the most part. I do not mark any of my designs. So a lot of people will ask me, are the designs that I'm doing built into a machine? No, it is not built into the machine. The designs are out of my head, and I am creating the design with my hands and the fabric. So the needle acts much like a pencil or a pen, and I'm basically drawing by using the fabric. I I've had many long armors tell me, well, that seems counterintuitive because, when we draw with the pencil and the paper stays solid and the pencil is the thing that moves. And this is just the opposite. But for me, this works for me. This is my zen. This is my calming thing. I've tried long arming, and as much as I admire it, it's not my thing. And it's not for everybody. So I'm glad that there is another option that we have to quilt with. And I just prefer it this way. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to decide, remember I talked about preparation. So I'm going to decide where I'm going to start. Now, you'd want to take a second before you get started here and just think, where am I going? What design am I going to use? Please don't start rushing into quilting right away. Just kind of think it through. Think about, the design that you want to do. And then all you have to do is, I like to hold my top thread just a little bit, lower my needle into where I want to start, and then raise it back up, lift my foot, and I'm going to pull my project toward me so you can see this. Now I'm going to give a little tug on my top thread and watch what happens. There's my bobbin thread. Now I'm going to pull that forward and pull that out. Now why do I want to do that? Because much like embroidery, you don't want to have a thread nest underneath. It's not so bad in embroidery because you're probably not going to see it. But when you are going to see the back of your quilt, and you really don't want to see any thread nests. This will avoid that. So there's my bobbin thread popped through. So all I have to do is now replace it. And I'm going to drop my needle. Now at this point, I'm going to use my flywheel. And I'm going to lower. When you are using your flywheel, always turn it toward you, not away from you. You want to turn it toward you. And I'm going to drop my needle right where that bobbin thread came up. And I'm going to drop my presser foot. And now I'm going to wait. Because I just want, now my project isn't going to move. Everything is stable. At this point, people are going to rush into their quilting, and they're not going to be happy with it. Again, just stop, take a breath, just relax a little bit, and just think about what it is you want to do. What designs do I want to do? Am I just practicing? Well, what am I going to practice? Am I going to practice feathers? Am I going to practice stippling? Have a goal. Have a goal when you're practicing. And that is going to give you a lot better success as well. Try to have some kind of goal that you're working on. Instead of just spending the time and wasting time just quilting, have a goal. What I like to do, I'm the kind of person, I love to challenge myself. I like to just put my ego aside and say, what is it that I need to work on? What am I really, really weak at? And I will hit that and attack it until it's not a weakness anymore. So you just kind of have to put your ego aside and say, you know what, I'm really not good at stippling. Well, that's exactly what I'm going to work on. I'm going to make it as good as I can get it. And then what you'll do is you have now challenged yourself, and you've now raised your self-confidence, because something that was a weakness is now a strength. For me, it was feathers. I could not do a feather to save my life. And I got some tips from other people. And once I started applying it, I got better and better at it. Now I love doing feathers. So you just have to again, put your ego aside. You have to decide what you're weakest at and really go after it and attack it. Now, before I start quilting, there's a couple little things that I like to do. It's something I want to talk about. I'm going to pull out a little bit so my hands don't look quite as Godzilla-ish as they are. So I usually, you can use your hands. It's not a problem whatsoever. But sometimes the fabric will slip and slide away from you a little bit. There are some products on the market that I use that work really well. And those are either quilting gloves or things that have little bit rubber tips on the ends that you can use. Some people use gardening gloves. That will work as well. Some people will use these little bankers tips, and you just place those on the ends of your fingers, like so, and that will give you control over your quilt as well. Some people don't like their hands covered. What I like to use are quilting gloves, and these are, let me put them on for you. These are a knit glove that is very breathable. A lot of you are familiar with these, but these are quilting gloves that have little rubber fingers on the tips.
I like those.
Yeah, I like using these a lot. They give me a lot of control. The oils from my hands do not transfer over to my quilt, especially if I'm working on a white quilt. I'll notice sometimes if I don't wash my hands prior, my quilt starts getting dirty as I'm quilting.
Yeah.
Is there a question?
Nope, no questions. Zero, keep rolling. So,
Okay.
and that looks really good. I think a few of the questions that rolled in, I see some of you maybe rolled in late. So when this live show's over, you can go watch from the beginning. He talked all about washing fabrics and things like that. So.
Yeah, I did. So again, with this, what's nice about this is I have time. Being able to just drop my needle in there, raise my presser foot, I have time to just wait and think. Don't jump right into it. Because see, I can still pivot. My fabric and my quilt is secure. And what I have here is, I'll show you, I just have just a piece of cotton on the backing, just a simple cotton batting, and a simple cotton on top. This pretty much represents my practice or my warm-up sandwich. And I have a bunch of these, again, sitting right beside my machine so that I can practice or warm up as much as I do. Do I still practice even though I've been quilting since 1976? Absolutely. Absolutely. The minute I stop practicing, I'm going to do something else. But I love to practice. I was a musician for 30 years, so practicing's in my blood. So at this point, one of the keys that I like to tell people is if you notice the position of my hands kind of form sort of a diamond shape. This is what you want around your needle. You want to be careful not to get too close to your needle, but you want to keep away from it. Now, what this does, you're only quilting in this area here. So this is all you're worried about. I'm not worried about anything away from that needle. All right? I'm just worried about what's here. And I'm going to focus on that. So now, a couple of ways to stop and start. You can do tiny little micro stitches, just like that. Just a couple of little stitches, and I can cut my thread now if I want. And I don't have to worry about those threads coming undone. So otherwise, there's a couple different ways to do it. Some people like to bury those threads and show, like I do show quilting. And most judges want to see a very clean start and stop. So I will not do those micro stitches. I'll just tie a knot and bury the threads. You can do that as well. Again, there's no right or wrong here. It's whatever you're comfortable with. So now all you have to do is just start moving. And the key here, I think what frustrates most people is the speed. Now there is a speed for you that will work just great. You have to find out what that is. There is no right or wrong. I am a slow quilter. There are some people that are fast quilters. Man, they want to just race and get this done. But I'm a slow stitcher. There is no right or wrong here. Now, I am creating these patterns out of my head. I'm using my hands and the speed of the machine to create these designs. And I don't mark, so they tend to be a little organic. My patterns are not perfect, and I don't want them to be. I do not believe there is a thing called perfection. I think we paralyze ourselves a lot by trying to achieve perfection. I don't. I wrestled with it for many years, and sometimes good enough is good enough. If I'm making a dog bed or if I'm making a quilt for a picnic, I'm not going to worry about everything being perfect. And even in my show quilts, I try to get as close as I can, and I'm happy with that. So again, you're going to just work with your speed. You're going to find the speed that works just right for you. If you find things are going too fast, slow down. Either slow down the machine, slow down your hand, and just take your time. If you find you're a little out of control and you're getting a little nervous, slow your machine down or slow your hand down. I'll turn this around now, and there's some feathers. And the first thing you want to do is check your back. You want to check your tension. You want to see how everything looks. It looks good to me. You want it to look as close on the back as it does on the front. If there's any kind of what we call little pokies, you want to adjust your tension. And you do have manual tension over on your settings. Very easy to do. When you're working with metallic threads, you're going to want to lower that tension, probably to, I would start at like a 2.0 and go from there. Again, practice, test, check out the little pokies on the front and the back. If you're getting pokies on front or the back, you want to adjust the tension. But this is, folks, I just want to say, if there was a magic formula or a magic pill or a magic button that I could push to make this easier, there is not. I would have taken it many, many years ago. I was not born being able to quilt like this. It took practice. I've been quilting since 1976, but it did not take 40-some years for me to learn this. If you give me 10 minutes a day for a week, I guarantee you're going to see improvement.
That looks really nice, Jerry. Really nice.
Thank you. So as far as you just want to keep practicing, it really is something you just have to practice to get better. You are creating your own stitch length. What I suggest that you do, and I'll just do this with my hands real quick. Again, what is your weakness? Leave your ego at the door. For some people, straight lines are a nightmare. They just don't. You know what? Then you just practice an entire piece until your straight lines are straight. Now the key here, as far as stitch length, you want to try and mimic your machine set for a straight stitch. That is the stitch length that you're trying to go for. Or anything that is even or consistent.
Yeah, that looks good. Hey, Becky, yeah, this is recorded, so once we're not live, you can watch it again. And guys, I don't have a dog, so I don't know what you're talking about.
It's mine.
So very quickly, I want to talk about something that's really, really big in the quilting world right now. Let me cut my thread here.
And then hey, Jerry, we got about 10 minutes left on our show, so I want to see a little bit more there, and then I want to see a little bit about Barb, because then we will follow all of this into our next show with the two of you together too.
Well,
and it's my dog. It's my dog.
The next we can talk about ruler quilting, because I do want to get into that just a little bit as well. So if we can do that on the next segment, I was going to show that now, but I'll go ahead and kind of toss it over to Barb. I hope you all enjoyed that. I know this wasn't a free motion class, and there's a lot more that we can cover, but I just wanted to give you just a little bit of it, just kind of a little basic on free motion quilting.
I thought that was awesome. Just a quick question for you, Jerry. There's just a couple. Let's see. I think it was, and I think you answered this, but do you slow the speed down on your machine or just do it with the foot control?
Either way, you can either use your foot control. You know what? I'm going to switch back to to me, if that's okay.
Sure. So Barb, I know that we're running out of time, but you have some things you're going to show as well. And then we are going to follow up with this in our next live session with the three of us. And, but that was absolutely beautiful.
Yes, it was. And honestly, I would probably go back and try it again. My brain just doesn't work the same as Jerry's, I don't think.
Well, and we were talking about this. Not everybody does free motion. What she's going to show is what I like to do as well. And Jerry, yours looked so good, though. I mean, I'm going to have to retry it.
Yeah, exactly. With all those tips and tricks, I think I'll have to retry.
Mm-hmm.
Just getting the speed between your hands and the machine. There is a setting there for you. You'll have to figure out what that is. But there is a synchronicity between you and your machine that you will find. And it just comes with practice. Just play around, work with your speed and of your hands with the machine, and you will find it. There is a sweet spot there that you'll find.
Awesome. Thank you, Jerry.
You're welcome.
Cool.
Now, Barb, you do quilting a little bit differently.
I do.
So tell us a little bit about what you do and give us a little demo here.
Well, I always wanted to do what Jerry is doing and has done. And I start out real good, and I'm working along, and all of a sudden I think to myself, gee, this is not a bad job. Okay. And it's done. It's over. And I'm ripping out. So yes. So I then turned it into thread painting. You know what thread painting is? It's over and over and over. So, but with our brother machines and my design center, I have found that I can now reproduce what I wanted to do. I can do it automatically now, or semi-automatically, let's just say. But I have the capabilities to quilt the things that I want to quilt without having to send it out and have somebody else do it for me. So my design center will allow you to do that. If I'm doing quilting on an old pattern to make a candy bag, I don't know whether you can see, but you can see the quilting. That's automatic.
That's gorgeous.
Yeah, those are the old patterns. One is 15 cents and the other one is 35 cents. So you know that they're pretty old.
That's really old.
yeah, exactly. Or if I'm taking and I'm putting applique down and I want to stitch around the edge of the applique. Can you see the candle wicking stitch on the applique?
Yeah,
and then I can quilt. I can quilt the back of my wall hanging with my design center. I can scan in what I want to do and quilt it with my design center. Or if I take I've done a piece of machine applique. My camera, I can't get used to this camera yet.
We can see you great. That looks wonderful.
And this is the background fills in my design center. This is what I could never do and never get to the quality that I wanted it. So now I do it in my design center, and it's easy. So, and let's see.
Barb,
you can take.
Leslie just wants to know what that pattern that you had. Did you have layers on that, or how did you do that?
Which one?
The first one you held up, that pattern?
The pattern? These, we started out doing the candy bags.
Yeah.
We had the candy bags that we turn into it. It's a zipper bag, but I used a vinyl covering and then just turned it into a zipper bag.
Oh, that's cute. Oh my goodness. That's really cute.
But I laid it flat in the hoop and stitched, quilted it in the hoop with my design center, and then just took it out and put the zipper in and turned it into a bag. So
nice.
It's, I couldn't do it that easy. I know I can do it with straight stitches and decorative stitches, but I love the quilting in my design center, where you can take a pattern or a panel and finish the panel as if you had a long arm quilter. It's hard to see, but
oh, that's beautiful. No, we can see it great.
Okay, and you can put different stitches in the wings. I have different stitches in her dress. Where's her dress?
Oh, wow. You kind of see the dress a little bit.
There you go. There you go. Okay. So I have different patterns in her dress, different patterns in her wings. I have the line draw in my design center to outline things. So this is the way I quilt. And it's probably a little bit of, I have to get something done quick. And years and years of having to do things quick and get a lot of samples done. I love the way it works, and I love the way how easy it is to do something and have something come out the way you want it to,
Yes. So B, yes, she's going to be showing us on an embroidery machine. And B says, so how hard is it to do a king size quilt on an embroidery machine? I'm going to just say easier than you think.
Easier than you think. Yeah. You take it in chunks. I'm sure Jerry will agree that you don't start out thinking the whole thing. You take it in small chunks and you move it along. So whether you're doing my design center or you're doing Jerry's method, you just take it in small pieces and move it around.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I do have Tinkerbell hooped up, another Tinkerbell, if you'd like to see just what my design center looks like. Just
we
quickly.
Would love that.
I know we don't have too much time left, but it's kind of a tease to what we'll do in another segment.
That sounds awesome.
That's okay.
We have to
okay.
see it.
All right. So let me take my
I'll bring her back up. She's just going to go to her other camera there, and as soon as she gets there. So Jerry, by the way, that free motion, you're just talking and doing that, and I could sit there and concentrate. I'm gonna try it now. I'm like Barb with the thread painting. I love thread painting because if it turns out, it's great. If it doesn't, I throw it out. But that was beautiful.
Exactly.
Well, this is the amazing thing about our creativity is we have so many options. There's free motion. There's my design center to achieve a lot of the same results. It just really depends on your imagination.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we can see your screen. Great, Barb.
All right. I think I'm going to move the camera just while I work on the screen. I do want to scan first. So, yeah, you need a little.
That's okay. We already passed no Dramamine. We're all good.
Okay, that's good. All right. So in order to get what's in your hoop onto the screen, you would want to use the scanning process or the image scan and scan your hoop. So if the hoop does not bang into the camera, we'll be good here. I didn't test that. Oh, we cleared it. Okay.
Well, if it's going to happen, it's going to be on live, so no worries.
Yeah, of course, yeah. So the machine, the Luminaire has the camera, and it's going to scan, and it's going to go back and forth probably 3 times in this size hoop. I'm using the new magnetic hoop, which I absolutely love. You've tried it, right, Angela?
I love that hoop.
I know.
Absolutely love that hoop.
Love it.
And it holds your quilt so fabulously. You don't have to worry about it shifting at all.
It really does. It actually works on when I do my hand-dyed fabrics or my lace on the real thin fabric.
Yes, right. Okay, so it brings it up on the screen. Now I'm going to darken this just a little bit so you can see it. But there's the image on the screen right now. Now let me get, of course I didn't have the pen ready, right? Okay, so I'm going to work on this little heart that's in here, and I'm going to bring it up in a little bit of a zoom here. And there's the heart. Can everybody see the heart?
Yes, that looks great.
So. I think so. Let's go down to 2. Can you still see the heart at 200? I think so.
We sure can.
All right. So in my design center, you have align properties up here, and you have region properties right here. And what you're going to do is we're going to take the paintbrush. Come on. There we go. And we are going to outline the heart. Now I want to do a combination of filling the heart with a decorative stitch, and I also want to do a line around it too, like I did on the wing down here, and I'll do that separately. But first of all, I'm going to just fill the heart with a decorative design. So I'm going to go and I'm going to take my pen, and I'm going to outline the heart. If you have a complete outline, you will be able to fill the heart instead of scribbling like we used to do in kindergarten, remember?
That looks great.
And of course, I could get a much straighter line, but I'm working around the camera. So we have an eraser so we can clean it up if we need to, a little bit there. And well, you get the idea, I think. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our region fill, or our fill bucket, and we're going to just fill the inside of that heart. So that is already ready to be digitized as to what stitch I want. Now I can turn it into, if I go in here to my decorative, my settings page, I can leave it as a satin stitch, which is what it defaults to. I can take it to a stippling stitch, or I can take it to one of the decorative stitches in here. And let's take it, what is a heart? Oh, you know what? I'm going to do the little circles because I want to show you something really cool. And we'll get into this when we do a longer session. So we're going to say it's right now it's chosen for the bubbles or the circles. I'm going to say fill it with circles, and there's my circles. Can you all see that? It's hard to see.
Oh, we can see it great, and that looks awesome, by the way.
Good. So I just want, if I were I was going to fill it with stippling or whatever, but I can go in here and I can adjust the size. See, the size is a little bit big. I want it smaller, so we're going to do smaller. Let's take it to 65. That's good. All right. I can angle this. So I can create anything I want. There we go. I can take it. Oh, I don't need to turn that on. I'll turn that off. I wanted to go in here to random shift, and I wanted to make it a little wonky. I don't like perfection. I'm one of these asymmetrical people. So can you see it? Let's go up here and take it to 400%. And now we have pebbles instead of circles. Can you see that?
We sure can.
Tough. Let's change the color and see if I can get it darker so you can see it better. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Just a little bit better. There you go.
Yeah, we can see that. That looks wonderful.
And you can make it even smaller. You can do more random shifting. You can make it a heavy stitch or a lightweight stitch, and then you take it to the embroidery side and stitch it in that area that you want to have that particular stitch. Then you'd go back and you draw with the line properties around the outside of it, so that you could do your decorative stitches, your chain stitch or your candle wicking or any of the other decorative stitches. We've got a lot to choose from here. If we go in here, we've got 8 right here, and then we have 10 more in here that you can do decorative stitching with. So it's really, really.
You just show a couple of those, because some people might not have seen that part in their My Design Center.
Yeah, it's hidden under this little motif stitch here. So if you didn't know it was there, and you didn't touch it, you'd never know the 10 other stitches were hidden here. So let's go back. Do we have time, Angela?
Oh yeah, go ahead. We got a few more minutes.
Okay. I'm going to take my line or my pencil, and I'm going to draw with the connected line. This is how I get my my smooth. Oh, here. Didn't mean to do that. I'm going to go back. I love my little return my back button. So if I want, undo. If I wanted to take the line and define this more, I could take my connected line and start here, and then just click around. The shorter the click I have or I take, it will make a more curved line. Then if I get into the longer straight lines, I can go a little faster. Okay, we're going to go back over here and see when I get to the end over here, I have to take smaller little pieces so I can get around a curve. There we go. And I'm hurrying up just so that we do. Okay, let's just look at that. We don't have to connect it. It doesn't have to be connected. And now we're going to go in and we're going to look at that line property. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to see it's right now. It is a decorative stitch, which I don't like, but that's what I had chosen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in there and I'm going to change that to a candle wicking stitch. That's a little bit better. Can you see that? That really looks kind of nice. Oops.
I love that stitch.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And the fun part about this stitch, and I wasn't really on the line, I would have taken more time, but the fun part about this is you can make it really big. You can make it up to 400%. Look at how big they are. And then you can space them out or make them closer, and you can also take them down so that they're really tiny, and then space them out so they look all different looks, So let's space this out a little bit. And they look like beads. So
that's very cool. I haven't, I've played with that, but I haven't played with it Jerry, have you played with this at all? Because that looks really cool.
This is the outcome that I did on the, on her hairband. So that's the finished product. Can you see that?
That's gorgeous. Yeah, we can definitely see that.
You can see the heart I filled with the with a stippling, and then the outside chain stitch, and then her hair, and then we can do background fills just like a long arm. So I can do huge quilts with the decorative stitching in my design center.
That is absolutely gorgeous.
I have more fun with my design center. So were there any questions on what I had done so far?
Let me bring Jerry. I think Jerry might have muted himself. So unmute yourself there for a sec. So
okay.
There you are. So if you have any questions for her, just let me know. I'll read them to her while she's on there. So that was more for, well, Margaret has a question, and this could be for either of you. When you do stippling on a quilt, do you have to adjust tension? She got some eyelashes from her.
Yeah. Jerry, you could probably take that one.
Yeah, if you're free motion quilting, usually what that means is your top tension is too tight. It's pulling up the bobbin thread. So unless you get them on the back, in which case it's too loose. So again, my 3 words: test, test, test. Take a little practice piece and adjust your tension using the same fibers that you're using in your project, and check it out and play with the tension.
Jerry, does the speed have anything to do with that if you're going too fast?
No, not so much. You want to, again, you want to keep your stitches consistent, and better to be on the smaller side than the larger side. Sometimes if you go, like, your stitches are really big, sometimes you'll get eyelashes. But again, just slow down and adjust your tension.
That's what I used to get. My brain would tell me the machine was going fast, so I had to go fast, and that,
so true.
Hand-eye coordination I was never good at.
So, hey, Barbara, what machine were you using on there? Joanne wanted to know.
The Luminaire.
The Luminaire.
The Luminaire. The Dream Machine has my design center, just not as many features, not as many decorative fills, but it does have the camera and my design center.
Excellent. Thank you.
And the big bloom that's back there is all the decorative fills that are on the Luminaire. There's 40, what are we up to? 42, I think. Each petal has a different decorative fill, and then it's outlined with the candle wicking.
Very nice. And then just a couple more quick questions, because the show we just went over our hour just a little bit, but that's all right. You guys can watch the replay if you had to leave after an hour. But so here's just a quick, Joanna wants to know, if you're doing a large quilt project, how do you connect fill patterns? Now, this might have to be a full lesson, actually, but if you had a quick, because there was a couple people that asked that.
Okay. Tip number 1, never leave a straight edge when you're filling an area. Used like a puzzle piece. So you want to leave a serpentine edge, and then when you when you move the hoop and you try and fill into that, it's going to go together like a puzzle. So you will mark it with a marking pen, and then you'll draw the continuation of your decorative fill up to that line. And it really, the geometric designs are a little harder to do, but then we have the position offset on the machine where you can match up those geometrics. So that's a whole nother lesson as well. But yes, the stippling is the easiest to do like a puzzle piece, but all the other designs can be put together, and you never know that you didn't do it on a long arm.
Excellent. And then I see a few of you asking about specific machines and upgrades. What you should do is call your brother dealer, because they have some great deals going on right now. And also, maybe it's something your machine has. They offer classes, and you can always come back and watch one of our live shows. So this was great. I'm very excited about this. I can hardly wait for our next live again.
Well,
so
I think we have at least 3 or 4 different classes that we can evolve.
Oh gosh, absolutely. So everyone's saying thank you for a great show. So let me just give you the schedule for next week, everyone, so you can see this. And then if you go to the Brothers Sews Facebook page and sign up for their newsletter, you'll have notifications of when these go live. And you can also go back to their YouTube page or the Facebook and watch the replays. So next week at 3 p.m., we have, let's see. Oh, Joanne's on next week. It's already October next week. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's October today, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious. So next week at 3 p.m. on Tuesday is Joanne. And you'll have Cindy Hogan. I saw somebody talking about the 10 needles. She'll be on her page at 4:30 p.m. on Tuesday. Wednesday, 1:30 p.m. And you don't have to remember all this, but it's all on the Brother page. 1:30 p.m. is Behind the Seeds in my studio here. And next Thursday, we have 2 more educators. So you might notice it's something that we're kind of adding to here, which is such great information. So we have Heather Banks and Jennifer Gleich next week, and that is at noon on October 8th. So mark your calendars. You can always check back at the Brother, and we will definitely post when you 2 are coming back. I think that people are going to be wanting you immediately, because we could have done this for 4 hours and still keep rolling.
You're right. There's so much to learn.
So much. So be sure to share your photos, especially if you're free motion. Make sure you tag #Brother Sews so we can see what you're doing. Jerry will be very impressed. And Barb, you and I have to work on this. You and I have to prove that we can do this.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Practice. I know.
Yes, we're sewing jeans right now. I think I'm going to have some free motion going down the legs. So everyone, thank you for joining us. You can always leave questions. We always come back. Check with your brother dealer on some of these new things. And Barbara and Jerry, it was great seeing you today. So
Thank you. Thank you. It's been fun. I've really enjoyed it.
bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.